It's such an honor to be here. I'm so impressed that you guys have figured out a way to continue your mission in spite of the pandemic. So I love Students for Life inherently understands this important truth. And that is that being truly pro-life is not just being against abortion, it is being for life. And I believe I do have a PowerPoint that also we're going to put up shortly. So what that means, being truly pro-life, is not just being against abortion, but being for life. It means supporting, as you've been hearing all day today, supporting the baby before it's born, but then after the baby's born, and it's being supportive to the mother as well. What does that look like? Well, for Students for Life, you're supportive of pregnant students on campus, and those programs you have to advocate for them, as well as those other generous programs you have, shows that you already value the mothers and the babies. Providing a way for mothers and fathers to stay home after the birth of a new baby or an adoption is another way that we can support families and support life. There are several conservative paid leave plans that are being introduced in Congress, and there were several last Congress, that would help provide a policy so parents could stay home at those first few months after the birth of a baby or an adoption, which would be such an important time for this family. So first I want to talk about the need. The Federal Reserve has said that only 44% of Americans, I should say that 44% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. In addition, 17% of Americans cannot pay all their bills each month. Those are really hard numbers, which means a lot of families are already struggling, so an unplanned pregnancy can be a real strain. And only 19% of workers have access to paid leave, 9% of low-income employees. And that cannot be okay. Another really shocking statistics is that almost a quarter of mothers go back to work within 10 to 14 days of giving birth. And that is a really difficult situation for these mothers, because of course they're going back to work so soon, not because they want to, but because they have to put food on the table and a roof over their head. Research has shown that most women that choose abortion cite the cost of the baby as a key factor. You can see how this forces some new parents out of the workforce and onto public assistance. Research has shown that mothers who have paid leave are 39% less likely to go on public assistance and 40% less likely to use food stamps. And it's not even just about the money. It's about the fact that mothers who are connected to the workforce are more likely to have better outcomes. They're going to have a better future, and their child's going to have a better outcome as well. I think another important thing that we need to acknowledge is that the workforce has changed. I know that my own father was able to raise a family on a mill salary. And personally, when I graduated from high school, a lot of my friends had apartments, they had their own cars. And now that's even difficult for people that graduate from college. So it's really difficult to find those family wage jobs at an early point in your 20s and when people are starting to have children. Currently, 44% of all workers are considered low wage, earning an annual salary of $18,000 a year or less. And so as you can see, that's had a big effect on the birth rate over the last few years. Right now, we are currently at only 1.71 live births per woman, when the replacement rate needs to be at 2.1 live births per woman. So as you can see, it continues to slide because it's really expensive and it's difficult for people to have children right now. And I think one of the key statistics that's important to note is when women were asked how many children they wanted to have, they said 2.7 children per woman, which shows that people aren't having as many children as they want. And part of it is because the environment is really tough for young families to have children. So, there are some really strong benefits for providing an environment for families to have those first few months together and to be able to stay home. And right now, only a small percentage, as you just heard, are able to do that. So these are the kind of benefits that everybody should be able to have regardless of their income or their age. And first of all, we already know that there's really crucial evidence, and we've all heard about it, that the mother-baby bond is crucial for the development of a child, both physically and psychologically. But the other thing is we've also seen that there are increased, as you can see from these statistics, outcomes for women and for babies being able to be home together. Some of the newer research has also shown that fathers produce the same love hormone called oxytocin that women produce after they've given birth and when they're breastfeeding. And this bonds them to their children with these lifelong bonds. And then, other studies have showed that fathers who are home those first few months after a baby is born are more likely to be involved in child rearing. And then other studies have shown that fathers who are involved in child rearing are also have children that have higher cognitive scores. So there's so many reasons that parents being together those first few months is key to them starting off really strong. And so now you can see, just hearing about the benefits and hearing about the need, why so many of us are so passionate about finding a policy, a federal policy that would really everyone would have access to, that would help all parents to be able to stay home those first few months after the birth or adoption of a baby. And so, as I mentioned, there are a couple plans in Congress I just wanted to talk about briefly. There's two different approaches that conservatives have taken to provide paid leave to families. The first one would be a Social Security plan, and the second one would be using the child tax credit. So the first plan that was introduced was in 2018 by Senator Marco Rubio. And he's reintroduced that plan with Mitt Romney, Ann Wagner, and Dan Crenshaw. And the way this would work is basically is after you choose, after the birth or adoption of a baby, you can either withdraw 1, 2, or 3 months of your salary from Social Security, and then you pay it back by just retiring later. So it's really giving you funds at your lowest income of your life, and then later on in your life when you don't need them as much, as you're taking them from later years. And so, as you can see, Joni Ernst and Mike Lee have a plan that's similar as well. But I think it looks like most of the Republicans right now are rallying around what's called the Advancing Support for Working Families Act, a bipartisan plan put together by Senators Bill Cassidy and Kristen Sinema. And the way this one would work is after the birth or adoption of a baby, you get a $5,000 withdrawal from the federal government that would be going against your child tax credit. So right now, for every child, you're able to write off $2,000 per year on with the IRS from your taxes. And so basically, you would only write off $1,500 per year for 10 years on that one child. So again, you're withdrawing that money sooner that you would be getting later. And so both of these approaches are budget neutral. They both don't have any mandates on businesses, and they both also are optional. So if you don't want to take advantage of this opportunity, you don't need to, you don't have to. But this does give people an opportunity to withdraw those funds, be able to stay home and start off strong if otherwise they wouldn't have the opportunity. Now, right now, Congress is talking about paid leave, and you may hear a little bit about it, but it's probably in the context of COVID relief. So the way it's working right now would be the bills that they're looking at in Congress would cover leave if you're sick with COVID, you're taking care of a family member who is sick, you need a quarantine because of exposure, and you need to care for a child whose school or daycare is closed. So Patriot Voices is about to start some advocacy where we're asking them to also include leave after the birth or an adoption of a baby. Because right now during COVID, I mean, it's a difficult time for new families because older family members that used to come and stay with them and take care of their children and help them are not available to do that. And then, of course, a lot of daycares are closed. So once again, those families at the lower income especially are being challenged during this time, and it's a good opportunity for us to help. I did want to just point out that, fortunately, public support for paid leave has increased in recent years and is really strong. I put up this graphic of actually a recent poll that was just commissioned by Students for Life. And as you can see, polling millennials and Gen Z, 73% support paid leave, 73%, I should say, support paid leave, and only 15% oppose it. Now, our own polling showed very similar numbers, which is 71% supported paid leave and 15%, again, opposed it. And what you can see here is we've also found, and I didn't put up all the slides for this, but we've found that it crosses party, gender, ideological, race, everything, that you see support in every segment of the population for paid leave. As you can see here, 65% of conservatives, 68% of moderates, and 83% of liberals support paid leave. And we also found that it supports candidates even in the most conservative districts. So right now, voters are 43% more likely to support a candidate if they support paid leave, and only 12% less likely. So basically, there's no downside to supporting paid leave any longer, because there are these plans that no matter how you look or what your political persuasion is, there's a way we can support families and help every family start off strong. So my challenge to you is, or your question may actually be, what can you do to help and how do you get involved? And so the first thing you can do is educate yourself, and you're doing that by just listening to me. So thank you for joining and for paying attention. I'd recommend that you go to paidleaveforfamilies.com. This is a website that Patriot Voices put together with Students for Life, with Priests for Life, as you can see, several other conservative organizations. And it has all sorts of information that you can access. It has a toolkit. It goes through messaging, goes through statistics, and all sorts of ways you can understand this policy better and be able to talk to people about it. The next thing I would really encourage you to do is to speak with your member of Congress. Now, if you haven't already figured out, Congress doesn't lead, they follow. So, a pretty prominent member, a politician just recently told me that he said, quote, "I only work in streams that are already moving." And I just had to laugh because, Kristen Hawkins and a lot of us, and certainly myself, if that was my theme in life, I would never be getting anything done. Certainly we got involved in paid leave well before there was any movement in this issue. But right now there is momentum. The stream is moving, and members of Congress are interested, but they still need to hear from their constituents. And so what I'd recommend is that you can go to this paidleaveforfamilies.com, and you can send an email to your member of Congress from this website. And you could also call up the office in your district. You can, if you know anyone in office, different ways you can communicate, but just to let people know that you support this policy. The other thing I would recommend is that you go on social media and share about paid leave. We have some graphics on this website that you could download. You could also retweet Kristen Hawkins when she speaks about it and other people. You can, when you see an article in the newspaper, you can share it. So really just socializing this issue so people better understand that conservatives support paid leave for families would also be helpful. And so, let me close with this. What if every family had the opportunity to start off strong? What could that mean for our country? And so really paid leave is a key part of that. What if all of our policies were focused on trying to help families, no matter what their income level was, to have that chance of being strong, being bonded, having time together, and that's what this policy would do. And so I'm hopeful that as we continue that it's going to build more support, and that Congress in the next, hopefully during this Congress will pass something that can help families to have this type of time together no matter what their income. So I want to just say thank you to Students for Life again for having me, and also thank you to you for listening to me and paying attention, and I really appreciate your commitment to life.